The fall of the mighty Oyo Empire had left Yoruba land in confusion. For hundreds of years, Oyo had been the pride of the Yoruba people, stretching its power far into the savannah, ruling with cavalry, trade, and diplomacy. But when Oyo collapsed in the 1800s, the center could no longer hold. Without a strong central king, the Yoruba towns began to fight among themselves. Old rivalries resurfaced. Neighboring villages no longer trusted each other. Everyone wanted power. Everyone wanted control. Ibadan, a young but strong city of warriors, rose quickly and demanded that other towns obey them. The Ekiti and Ijesha people refused. They said, "We will never bow to Ibadan. We are free people." Towns like Ijebu and Egba stayed suspicious, protecting their own land. The Yoruba world was like a house on fire, each corner burning in a different way. And right at the middle of this storm stood Offa. Offa was not the biggest Yoruba town, but it was one of the most important. It sat at a strategic crossroads, trade routes passed through Offa, warriors often marched near it, and its location made it a gateway between the northern savanna and the southern forests. To the north stood Ilorin, controlled by the Fulani after the betrayal of Afanja. The Fulani rulers wanted to spread their power deeper into Yoruba land. To the south and east were the other Yoruba towns fighting Ibadan's dominance. To the west lay trade routes leading toward Lagos and beyond. For Offa, peace was impossible. The kingdom was always watching its back, always preparing for war. When Oyo fell, many warriors ran south to Ibadan. It started as a refugee camp but quickly grew into a military city. By the mid-1800s, Ibadan had become the greatest war camp in Yoruba land. They had discipline, strong generals, and a hunger for conquest. Ibadan sent out armies to control other Yoruba towns. If a town refused, Ibadan would crush it. To some people, Ibadan brought order. To others, Ibadan was a bully. The Ekiti towns, Ijesha, and their allies saw Ibadan as a threat to freedom. They began to whisper, "We must stand together or Ibadan will enslave us all." By 1877, the whispers had become open rebellion. The Ekiti Parapo alliance was formed, bringing together Ekiti towns, Ijesha, and others. They had a great leader, Fabunmi of Okamisi, who was bold and fearless. When he struck against Ibadan's representatives, it was like setting fire to dry grass. War spread across Yoruba land. This war would later be called the Kiriji War, named after the sound of the cannons and guns that echoed like thunder, Kiriji, Kiriji. The war was not a small one. It lasted for 16 years, making it the longest civil war in Yoruba history. Now imagine Offa in the middle of this. On one side, Ibadan demanded loyalty. On the other side, Ekiti Parapo asked for support. From the north, Ilorin looked down with hungry eyes, ready to strike. Offa had to make choices carefully. Supporting Ibadan could bring enemies from the east. Supporting Ekiti could bring Ibadan's anger. Staying neutral could invite Ilorin's attack. Every night, the elders of Offa sat in council. They lit fires, beat drums softly, and debated. If we join Ibadan, we may lose our freedom. If we join Ekiti, Ilorin may strike. If we stand alone, can we survive? Offa's king, the Olofa, carried a heavy burden. He knew the future of his people depended on every choice he made. While the Yoruba towns fought each other, Ilorin watched closely. The Fulani rulers of Ilorin saw Offa as a gate they must pass through to expand further into Yoruba land. For years, they tested Offa's strength with raids and small battles. They wanted to weaken Offa before striking fully. The people of Offa knew this. Every child grew up learning how to use arrows. Every young man trained for war. Women, too, prepared food and medicine for soldiers. The symbol of Offa was the arrow, and truly, every Offa heart was sharp like one. But even arrows can break when fire surrounds them. As the Kiriji War raged on, villages burned, farms were destroyed, trade stopped. Hunger spread. Fear ruled. In the forests, warriors hid, waiting to ambush enemies. In the towns, people prayed to their gods for protection. In Offa, the people sharpened their arrows, knowing that one day, the fire would reach them fully. And indeed, that day was coming. Because while Ibadan and Ekiti Parapo were busy tearing each other apart, Ilorin was preparing to deal a deadly blow to Offa. The Yoruba world was burning like dry grass. The smoke rose high, and the sound of guns echoed across the land. The war was changing everyone. No town was safe. And in the middle of it all, Offa stood like a lone warrior surrounded by enemies. The question was no longer if Offa would be attacked. The question was when. The Kiriji War was raging, and Yoruba land was already drowning in fire. But while Ibadan and Ekiti Parapo locked horns in endless battles, a darker shadow was stretching over the land from the north. That shadow was Ilorin. Many years before the Kiriji War, Ilorin had been a Yoruba town. It was ruled by Afanja, the Aronika Konfo, the great general of Oyo. But Afanja betrayed the elephant of Oyo. He wanted to be free from Oyo's authority, so he invited Fulani warriors and Muslim scholars to join him. At first, this alliance made him powerful. But soon, the Fulani turned against him. Afanja was killed, and Ilorin fell under Fulani control. The Yoruba chiefs were pushed aside, and Ilorin became an emirate, ruled by Fulani emirs under the Sokoto Caliphate. From that day, Ilorin was no longer just a Yoruba town. It became the sword of the north, and its eyes were fixed on Yoruba land. The rulers of Ilorin had one clear goal: to expand their territory deeper into Yoruba land. They had already cut Oyo into pieces, destroying the once mighty empire. But towns like Offa still stood strong. And to the Fulani leaders, Offa was not just another town. Offa was the gateway between the savannah and the forest. Whoever controlled Offa could control trade, movement, and even war routes. Offa's arrow symbol represented resistance, and Ilorin hated that defiance. The emir and his war council believed: until Offa is crushed, Ilorin cannot fully conquer the south. In Offa, the people knew Ilorin's eyes were on them. Every market day, travelers brought whispers. Ilorin is gathering warriors. The emir is calling on his allies from the north. They want to swallow Offa. At night, the elders of Offa gathered around the fire. Their faces were lit by the red glow of the flames, their voices low but heavy. One elder said, "Ilorin will not stop until we are ashes." Another replied, "Then let us sharpen our arrows. If they want our blood, they will drink it drop by drop." The Olofa himself carried a heavy heart. He knew his town was brave, but bravery alone could not stop Ilorin's endless army. The Fulani of Ilorin were clever. They did not just march blindly into battle. They prepared carefully, step by step. Isolation: they worked to isolate Offa from allies. Ilorin sent messengers to other towns, offering peace or trade, trying to ensure that Offa would stand alone when the time came. Raids: small bands of Ilorin warriors attacked farms and villages near Offa. They burned crops, killed livestock, and spread fear. These raids were meant to weaken Offa slowly, like poison in the blood. Spies: Ilorin sent spies disguised as traitors to Offa. They entered the markets, listened to conversations, studied the gates, and counted the warriors. At night, they returned north with secrets. Religious justification: the Fulani imams declared that conquering Offa was part of jihad. This gave the warriors spiritual zeal, making them believe they were fighting for God, not just for land. For the people of Offa, life became a constant preparation for war. Young boys were trained to shoot arrows before they could even farm. Girls learned songs of courage, to strengthen the hearts of warriors. Mothers prepared food that could last for days in case of siege. Fathers built secret escape routes into the forest, in case the walls fell. Yet, even as they prepared, fear lived in every home. At night, drums echoed in the distance. Was it just hunters, or Ilorin warriors coming closer? Children woke up crying, mothers whispered prayers, fathers gripped their bows tightly. During this tense period, Ibadan also reached out to Offa. Ibadan generals sent messengers. "Join us. Together we will crush Ilorin." Together we will rule the south. But the Olofa was torn. If he joined Ibadan, Offa might become a slave under Ibadan's military power. If he refused, Ilorin might crush them anyway. So Offa hesitated. That hesitation gave Ilorin more time. By the mid-1880s, Ilorin had gathered its forces. Horses from the savannah, swords from the north, muskets from traders, and warriors filled with fire. The emir's general said, "We will not just defeat Offa. We will wipe it from the face of the earth." And so, the march began. From the walls of Offa, scouts returned with fearful news. The ground shakes with horses. The dust of Ilorin's army darkens the sky. They are coming. The Olofa called his people together. His voice thundered. Offa is the land of arrows. Offa is the land of warriors. If we die, let us die with our heads high. If we live, let it be as free people, not slaves. The people shouted back. Arrow! 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 The stage was set. The shadow of Ilorin was no longer just a fear. It was now a reality. The warriors of Offa sharpened their arrows until they gleamed in the firelight. The women tied cloth around their heads, ready to support the fighters. The children were hidden deep in the forest, away from the coming storm. And as the sun set over the red earth, the sound of Ilorin's drums rolled across the land like thunder. The war for Offa had begun.